Alright guys, so today we're going to be installing a carbon fiber steering wheel on a Cadillac CT5 V Blackwing. As far as I know, the process should be the same for installation on any CT5 4 or even some of the XT series, I believe. This car is a 6-speed manual, so we will not be using paddle shifters, but like I said, the same process should still apply. Again, so since this car is a 6-speed manual, we do not have paddle shifters. You will see here that there's a cover plate covering up where the paddle shifters would typically be. Directly behind that cover plate, there's a little trim panel. Now, to be able to access that trim panel, which is what you need to do to be able to remove the airbag, you first must turn on the vehicle, turn the wheel 90 degrees so that this panel sits atop the steering wheel, so that you can pop those panels off on both sides, exposing the bolt holding in the steering wheel. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see what I'm referencing. On top, this trim panel right here has a little tiny place for you to put your finger in. All you're gonna do is pull up on it. Let me go ahead and use two hands 1 second here. And just like that, you can see how this attaches. There's two tabs at the bottom with a channel. And up top, it just has these little latches. So now you have exposed that bolt that's right there that you'll need to remove on both sides to take out the airbag. So let's go ahead and do it to the opposite side now. Don't lose this. Again, same process on this side. Same piece. Before we start removing the airbag, one of the things that we want to do is go ahead and disconnect the battery. So we're going to open up the battery tray right there. And then inside, you're going to find the negative terminal, which is right here. And using a 10 millimeter, you're going to go ahead, loosen that battery terminal. Let me go ahead and get the wrench out of the way. So we're going to loosen the battery terminal and then carefully reach down here, disconnect the battery, and we're going to tuck it away. Hopefully, tuck it away so that it cannot come in contact with that terminal. I'll go ahead and put the battery cover down there so that it can't accidentally jar itself around and touch the terminal at some point, possibly setting off the airbag. So we'll go ahead and wait 10 minutes for any of the residual power in the car to drain itself. And while doing that, I'll leave the door open just to leave some of the cabin lights on. Shouldn't take that long though. All right, so it's been 10 minutes now. We're gonna go ahead and remove the airbag. Right here, there's a 10 millimeter bolt. Same thing on the opposite side, 10 millimeter bolt. So I'm gonna use my hand
ratchet here to go ahead and loosen these bolts. At this point, it's finger loose, so I'll go ahead and back it out the rest of the way by hand.
All right, there's bolt number 1. Same thing on the back side.
I don't know if you guys can see it, but the way I see it right now, the steering or the airbag's kind of bouncing around, indicating that yes, these are the correct bolts as I'm loosening the airbag's mount.
Again, we're back to finger tight, so I'll back it out the rest of the way. There's your second bolt. All right, at this point, should be able to just, let's see. Take the airbag now, and it'll come right out, just like that. On the back side of your airbag, you see these 3 switches. Each one of them, you'll want to disconnect the switch. Bottom one here looks like it has a little red safety on it. Pull the safety out, and then, let's see. Push down on the center red tab, located right there. And it should pop right out. And then on these 2 airbag ones, you're gonna have 2 orange clips on either side that you'll want to pull the clips backwards simultaneously. All right, so things are always easier with the right tools. You can see right here, this orange pin, it's like a paddle switch. There's a little bar on each side of that paddle. So I'm using a flathead screwdriver, a skinny one, and then one of these picks to be able to lift that switch up. I'll show you what it looks like on this last one, the purple one here. So I'm using a screwdriver here to lift it up. And then on the back side, using a pick, you could probably use 2 flathead screwdrivers. Once you get it to the top, a little bit of pressure. Maybe a little wiggle. Let's see. And then that should just pop right out. There you go. There's your airbag. Go ahead and set that down off to the side. All right, and now the view from inside the car. All right, so you're gonna see here, this is your steering wheel bolt. I believe it's a T55, and you can see that the manufacturers went ahead and put this paint marker on here to show that, you know, the Loctite they used, the bolt hasn't backed out and it's still in the same position that they put it in. Important thing here, you're gonna see your wire harness up top. That will need to be removed. And then you'll want to use this T55 Torx bit right here on a breaker bar to be able to back that bolt out. All right, so I went ahead and figured this piece out. This is where I'm going to use my little 90-degree angle pick. In your wiring harness, you'll see up here there's this red tab. That red tab is essentially the safety lock that keeps the wiring harness from coming unplugged. I'm going to take my pick in this hole, this channel, kind of reach back and pull that red safety clip backwards. So now you should see that it's pulled backwards a little bit. And what that'll allow you to do is this little yellow tab here, you can push up now and then grab that harness and it'll come right out just like that. Now let's do the T55 bit. All right, so let's go ahead and break that T50 loose. So I've got my T50 bit, 1/2 inch to 3/8 adapter, my 1/2 inch breaker bar, 24 inches long. Go ahead and put it in there. And then go ahead and break that loose. Once you have it loose, you can go ahead, obviously, swap over to a ratchet instead if you choose to. That'll make it slightly easier. I'm gonna go ahead and have to run an extension to do this. Let's see. It's definitely in there good and tight with that Loctite that they put on it from the factory. All right, so now we have that center bolt removed right here. Now, with any luck, steering wheel pops right off. There you go. Be very sure not to touch the clock spring. Do not touch the clock spring. Let's go ahead and get the part switched over to the new wheel. Alright, so first order of business is going to be removing all the trim pieces from the back of the steering wheel. You can see there's a whole bunch of screws all over for all of these buttons that are on the front. It happens to be a T15. Let's see. There you go, T15. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of those right now.
One. I'm gonna go ahead and get a parts tray for this. Sorry, not a little parts tray so it can be safe. I'll put all the back stuff over there.
So now this back trim piece is loose. I'm going to go ahead and jiggle it a little bit. See if something's caught. Okay, so there, the wiring harness is tucked in on the back here. Let me get this screw out and I'll show you. Alright, so on the back here, you'll be able to see that the wiring harness right there is clipped in by this little retaining clip. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I just, let's see how to get that out. Push it down a little bit, lift up, push forward on it, and it comes right off. There you go. There's that back trim. So I'm gonna go ahead and set that aside. That'll be reused on the new wheel. Now inside the steering wheel, I'm not seeing any additional screws. Now what I am seeing are there these plastic tabs here, 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 and there. And those are almost like retaining the wiring harness in the steering wheel. So I'm gonna get a set of needle nose pliers. Alright, now let's see. If I use my screwdriver with that torque bit and the needle nose, will I be able to push this through? Yep, sure enough. So I'm pushing 2 of the 3 tabs in with the needle nose and then pushing on the 3rd tab with the screwdriver. I want to be careful not to damage these because these are what hold the wiring harness in. So I don't want to break any of this off. Alright, so now I have all 4 of those. And I believe now the steering wheel, wiring harness, and trim pieces should all come right out. But I'm going to be gentle to make sure. Oh, would you look at that? Alright, so pretty cool little Easter egg in case you didn't know. There we go. So on the back where the paddle shifters would be on an automatic, GM and Cadillac went ahead and put on this little panel to cover it up. And as you can see, it says General Motors. It gives the lat and the long. And then it says the GM Technical Center, and it's got the blueprint for the Technical Center right there. So that's a pretty cool little Easter egg. That's on the right side. And then on the left side right here, I'll go ahead and pop that one off. You can see that this one is the Milford Proving Grounds. Oh, sorry. There you go. This one is the Milford Proving Grounds. There you go. Pretty cool little Easter eggs there. Now, since that's exposed, did I just... Yep, I sure did. When I picked it up, I pushed some of those pins back in. Let me go ahead and pop them back out. Okay. So now you'll see that I've exposed one torque bit screw there and one right there behind those GM
paddles. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same bit, T15. Go ahead and take those out. I'm guessing that's what's holding the like the cruise control switches and volume controls, all the gauge cluster buttons in place. So I've gone ahead and removed those two screws, put them in a separate part tray. Make sure that I keep these left and right paddle covers in the same spot so that I don't lose them.
Alright, so now have I gotten everything out? I don't see any additional screws or hardware on the backside. I can feel the bottom panel is loose. The wiring harness for the heated steering wheel is right here. That's interesting. Okay, so that's wired. Oh, is that on a clip? It does appear to be. Okay. So, sad day. You're going to lose the heated steering wheel function. Hopefully that doesn't throw an engine code. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that safety clip down, depress this little black tab here, and unplug your heated steering wheel. Alright, I didn't capture it on camera, so shame on me. But I was afraid if I broke it on camera, then everybody would laugh at me. So what I did, in order to remove the trim from the wheel, I went ahead and put my thumbs on both of the V button and then the PTM switch. And I kind of pressed against it in order to loosen it. And then once you feel getting loose on the front, I went ahead and started pushing down, or out rather, on all the steering wheel control switches. And what that allowed me to do is to go ahead and separate all your controls and wiring harness from your steering wheel. So here you go. There's the old wheel. And here's the new wheel. Alright, so original wheel, replacement wheel. Hopefully this works. I will do a quick inspection. It's got all the same manufacturer markings, all the same mold markings as the OE wheel. Appears to be genuine. Got the same QR code on the back. As far as I can tell, it's the real thing. Alright, bear with me as we get this figured out together. So this is the replacement trim piece that goes at the bottom of the steering wheel. It's a separate piece on most CT5s, I believe. So it just disconnects directly from the wheel. Here's the new wheel with that trim piece and all its wiring harness, the buttons and everything. So now what we're gonna try to do together is ensure that we can get these buttons into the replacement wheel. Alright guys, it's been a long time since I last saw you. We got the wheel together. Some things to talk about. It's not a perfect fit because this bottom trim piece is slightly different than the one that the wheel came with, which is right there. Yep. So, you're gonna get a little bit of a gap, but as far as I can tell, that's not gonna be something that's gonna show up when you are driving. Because what you're gonna see is this, and I think that looks pretty decent for what it is. Now, The fun part. I don't know if you can see on the ground, but there's all these pieces of foam. Some extra part of the steering wheel that I had to trim off, right? It's glued on there. So if we take a look at the original wheel, this stuff right here is pretty much all foam. It's a real dense foam. The aftermarket wheel that I had to do some trimming, mostly on the back, some on the front. But this piece right here was slightly different than the one that I had on the aftermarket wheel, the carbon wheel. So both sides, I had to do a whole bunch of trimming. And then right here, you can see on the factory wheel, where there's this cutout, right? That little U-shaped cutout, easier to see from the front, right? That's actually where the data plate on this trim piece, this is held in with a pin in the back. So that protrudes into the back, kind of like this. So I had to do something similar to the original wheel over there, where I cut out essentially that little U shape right there so that the pin behind this V badge wouldn't hit the steering wheel. So now I think it's back together, and I think it's time to go throw it into the car, see how it looks. Should pretty much be a reverse install of how you got it out. So, the steering wheel is actually, what would be the right word? Clocked. It's grooved so that there's no way to put it on but straight. So at the bottom of the wheel, there's this center groove where the splines stop, right? That's gonna match right there on the steering wheel at the bottom. So go ahead and carefully and gently line it up. Don't push too hard on it because you're just trying to find the groove. And then once you get it on there, the wheel pretty much should just put itself into place. All right, now comes the fun part. So we're gonna go ahead and reconnect our wiring harness. Sorry, I forgot to put these little tabs back into their spot that hold the wiring harness in place. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm gonna connect the main wiring harness. I pushed that red safety tab back in that you had to pull out to be able to get the wiring harness unplugged. This is where your steering wheel heater would be plugged in normally, but again, I had to unplug it because this aftermarket wheel does not have a heated steering wheel, unfortunately. So I'm just gonna tuck that down into the channel that would go down to the bottom. Here's our airbag. I'm gonna start by plugging in, let's see, what's the easiest one? All right, so start by plugging in the pink. It should just snap right on. No need to mess with those orange clips. So pink went on, that's what you heard. And then purple's going on. Purple went on. And then this 2-wire switch, I believe, is your horn. We're gonna plug the horn back in. All right, so horn's in. Now that same red tab that you had to pull backwards to get it out, you gotta push that back in. So at this point, horn should seat properly back inside the steering wheel. I'm gonna check. Okay, so I'm seeing the wires are kind of catching. Well, let's see if I can just keep it out of the way with my finger. Yeah, that seemed to work. Very good. All right, so now the horn's back in place, the airbag rather. Feels like it's in the right spot. Oh, forgot the most important thing. I forgot the steering wheel bolt. So I got my bolt. You can reapply some medium strength thread locker if you want, some blue thread locker. I'm not going to. I never did in my Corvette when I had it. The wheel never had any issues. It was just as tight when I took it off when I sold it as it was when I put it on. And you'll actually feel all that thread locker in there kind of making it a very tight fit as it is anyway. All right, so I'm tight now. You're gonna have to use your torque wrench, and you're gonna want to set your torque wrench to 35 foot-pounds. So there's 35. Once you've got your torque wrench set, ideally you do this using the shortest extensions that you have to. This is a 3/8 inch torque wrench, not my 1/2 inch, so I can lose the adapter. But I'm gonna go ahead and torque it. Heard the 2 clicks just to confirm it. There you go. All right, so now we are torqued. Nice and tight. Good. All right, time to get the airbag back in. Okay, airbag's in there, and I can confirm that by looking behind and seeing that I have a place now to put these 2 side bolts back in with my 10mm socket. So I'm gonna go ahead and reach back there, push the airbag in. And again, all of my wires are connected. The airbag's all hooked back up, the horn's hooked up. All my switches and the main wiring harness are all hooked back up.
It would help to get the bolt started in the right spot. I got the right side in, started at least. Come back over to the left side.
Tighten these up.
Not over tightening any one before I make sure both of them are tightened. Okay, right side's tight.
Left side's tight. Airbag's not going anywhere. Looks like it's in the right spot. All the buttons seem to actuate. I think at this point it's time to hook up the battery and make sure everything works right. All right, so we're back here at the battery again. I'm gonna grab my 10mm. I'm going to remove my panel that I put in place to make sure it wouldn't reconnect itself. Be careful to put it back on. You may see some arcing. Got a little spark there. Make sure it's seated all the way down at the bottom of the terminal. I'm gonna take my 10mm again. Tighten that nut on top of the battery terminal. Okay, that's tight now. I'll replace that. And at this point, we're ready to go check on the steering wheel. All right, so let's go ahead and check the functionality of the steering wheel, make it sure everything works. Car's in neutral, pedal down, clutch down. Car is started, switches work, scroll wheel works, track up and down works. I can see that on the HUD. Let's see. Yep, I can see that works. Volume works, left and right, up and down rather. All right, my phone decided to stop working there. So everything works, PTM works, everything. All the volume switches, all the rollers, the cruise control settings, As mentioned, heated steering wheel does not work since it's not hooked up. This is what it looks like from front on. Again, even with that panel gap, you can't really even see it from the passenger seat, nor you don't see anything at the bottom that's really, you know, a sight or a sore spot on your eyes. So nothing wrong down there. And then on this side, you see a small gap, but that's about it. Otherwise, I think it looks pretty good. If you got any questions, go ahead, throw them down there. I spent probably 2 hours doing this because of all the steering wheel trimming I had to do. When I did this on my Corvette, I think it took 15 minutes. It took longer to get the tools out and to disconnect the battery than it did to perform the actual steering wheel switch. So let me know what you think.